Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we are actually taking a bit of a sidestep. We are going to be discussing the pilot. A few people had asked for us to tackle this. No time like the present. As we barrel towards the season 1 final, I thought this would be a nice time for us to have a look at
Even not checking the comments, I am aware of how much this is coming up. So here you go, the pilot, we're doing it.
Yeah. A few we had a lot of direct messages about it. It's come up a couple of times in the comments, so it's about that people want us to watch this. So I wanted your opinion on it, and it is interesting as a piece of television because it is sort of, I think, as I've said to you in the past, it's the DNA of the show we love is there.
Yeah,
but it's also so different. So I mean, yeah, go on.
In a lot of ways, it's comparable to the Tracy Ullman shorts of The Simpsons. Like the stark difference in animation, the fact that the characters are there but a little bit off kilter. I wasn't expecting to see a storyline. For those that don't remember, the storyline is that the gems. I'm really ill. Sorry, because we watch. Yeah, sorry. The gems do some gem stuff. Is the storyline? No, I could. Yeah, that's not the storyline.
It's the time thing. He gets for comebacks.
Sorry, we watched this close to another episode, and I could only think of that episode. Bingo, the comeback. Yes, so. The gems come back from a mission with a gem device that it molds itself to Steven and allows him to travel back in time to make witty comebacks, which are used at first on Lars and Sadie, and then are used to resolve the issue. I think it's interesting that we got a story we didn't then see in the show. That surprised me. I was like, oh, this is a completely different plot. Weirdly, and I never thought I'd say this, but I think the jazzier sort of ice cream related, food related first couple of episodes is an oddly better introduction. I think this is kind of too. It's very science fictiony, very timey-wimey, and I just think that it's quite a strong, interesting plot to go with. As a opening, you then go, well, is the whole show about time travel? Is it about this? I think opening with a monster was a better idea, but I really liked this as a concept. I thought that, like I say, the animation was just a little bit off kilter, but still a bit interesting. I was surprised to see Lars and Sadie. I like that the rest of the town was in their earliest of thoughts about the show. And yeah, it was just an interesting, entertaining watch.
Yeah. I quite like it. I don't think it's perfect by any stretch. Some of the characterization is off, but I think it's really interesting to see the things they kept and the things they didn't. And it's interesting that it really does give you glimpses of what the show will ultimately be able to do, because the plot line. So this device, which, by the way, they did sort of use again, the little time travel device comes back in Steven and the Stevens, obviously. That's that little time turner looking object is how he ends up creating lots of Stevens in Steven and the Stevens. Right. So they didn't completely never come back to it.
No, but the comeback side of it.
Yes, so this device can only be used for comebacks. And there's a moment in the pilot, and for those of you who don't remember or haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's on Daily Motion. There are clips of it on YouTube. You can have a look. But basically, they go into a battle, and Garnet, right at the top of it, says, like, Steven, you're a stupid head, or something like that. She says, like, a really lame kind of insult. And I can't remember exactly what she says. She just, like, insults him. And then he's like, oh, and then the battle happens, and it goes horribly wrong. And, like, everyone's in real danger. And he realizes that he has the chance to do it again because Garnet insulted him. If he could come up with a comeback to that insult, it would take him back to that moment and allow him, with the knowledge of how the battle played out, to make it play out differently.
Yeah, so really, it's a really clever idea.
Because for a minute, you think Garnet is like being a bit of an arse.
No, I didn't think that, and I think that's interesting. I think if this had have aired as the first episode, you would think Garnet was just being a bit of a prick, but I think with the foreknowledge I've got of the show, gotcha. I assumed Garnet was doing something clever.
Yeah. Well, you were correct.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was.
And then it links. I really like as well them undoing all of it with the clown thing.
Yes, yeah. So at the end, he goes right back to the very beginning and erases everything that played out and stops it from happening altogether, which is nice. It's interesting because his relationship to the gems seems very similar. The characters of the gems all seem quite similar. So like Amethyst is pretty much her usual chaotic self. She actually gives him that device unbeknownst to Pearl. I almost suspect just to see what would happen. Like she's just as much a source of chaos in this version of the show as she is in the show that it became. Garnet is the same sort of stoic leader type. Pearl is just as sort of like panicky, and there's a lot of the character echoes in it. Interestingly, that the character that I think I found to be most different, I found Lars to be a lot more bully and antagonistic in this. He was a bit more of a bully, a bit more of an enemy of Steven. Like Stephen came in, he's like, ugh, hi Lars. Even Steven was like not being his usual like I love everyone self.
Yeah, I think that's in a way the down. I don't know when you viewed this pilot, but I kind of felt that, but it's weird because I've got foreknowledge of the show. I just viewed it as Lars being insecure about himself and therefore deflecting. But maybe that's me making excuses for a character I quite like.
No. I think from Lars's perspective, you can certainly put it as that. But I think the difference for me is Steven's reaction to him. Because one thing that even from the very first few episodes, even the very opening of the very first episode, when Steven's like looking at the lion lickers because he's sad because Cookie Cats have stopped, Lars is being quite like shitty with him then. But just rolls right off Steven. Steven's just like, oh, Lars, like, he doesn't mind. But it's here, he opens the door. Lars says something a bit snotty, and Steven's immediately like, oh, Lars. Like, this version of Steven reacts that way to Lars, which makes me feel like either this Lars is less empathetic than the Lars we've come to know in the real show, or this Steven is less capable of just seeing the good in everyone. Either way, it's interesting. I don't know which it is. It could be either. But that reaction really changes your opinion of Lars because you're still on Steven's side. So when Steven's like, ugh, Lars, you're like, ugh, yeah, Lars. And this is a character I really like, obviously, in the actual show, but in this pilot, it's a different reaction because of Steven's reaction. And it's interesting to note you can influence somebody's opinion of a character by having having another character react to them differently than you'd expect. So yeah, that's kind of fascinating. Sadie is exactly the same. No change at all in Sadie.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't. To be fair, she doesn't get a lot of lines for you to explore it, but yeah, basically the same.
Yeah. And the actual premise of if Stephen got time travel, what would he use it for? Witty comebacks. That feels very Stephen.
Yeah, but again, I think that's a better plot to play when you know the characters. I don't think that it just doesn't feel like a pilot first episode plot to me.
Yeah, I think in animation, pilots are used a bit differently than they are in television. Because in TV, if you make a pilot and then the show gets a thumbs up, you then make the second episode. But in a lot of the animated shows I've seen, whenever I've caught their pilots, if they exist, they were more made like a tech demo, like not really
so
with the intention
examples of what the show can be.
Yeah, rather than with intent to air. Like you look at the Adventure Time pilot, it's very different. As is this, and I don't think the intention was ever for this to air as such. It was more like Cartoon Network went and commissioned a 6-7 minute thing to be made just to sort of see how it looks and sounds and flows, and then they took it from there and created the actual show. I'm not sure this was ever really intended to be seen, but it's
intended to be a first episode,
exactly. It was more a demonstration of what the show would become, and I think it does a really good job of getting a little bit of everything in there. The one thing it obviously doesn't really get to touch on, sadly, is some of the more emotional aspects of the show, but the characters and the way they interact with Steven and the way Garnet sort of trusts that he'll understand that she's insulting him so he can have his comeback and go back in time. It's all, like I said, as I've said a few times now, the DNA of the show we get is very much there. It's all really well done.
Yeah, definitely.
And also the song. What did you think of the because this is the first time you'll have heard what is known as the first verse, I guess, of the theme.
The one that references pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I thought it was fun. I think that works actually quite nicely as that in a way would have been nice to get as a pilot, like because it really does lay out quite nicely who they are, what they're doing, and I think it says a lot about the tone of the show within the song as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really liked it. Were all the voice actors the same?
Yes. To my knowledge, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't. There was, if there was anyone different, it was interesting because there was a situation with Adventure Time, and I always feel bad for this kid. But basically, I forgot the name of the kid now that voices Finn, the lead character of Adventure Time. But basically, his older brother, voiced Finn in the pilot, which is again made to. But because his voice had broke before they got to the actual show, they went with his little brother instead, and now his little brother is on that I'm sure I'm applying all sorts of sort of tension that probably isn't there, but in my head that is like super. That must be
yeah.
Because now that
That's
kid's
got to be a little bit shitty.
Yeah, because that kid's now gotten work on other shows. Like he's a big.
He's got that Adventure Time money as well.
Well, Adventure Time, yeah, exactly, and also he's on Voltron, Legendary Defender, the Netflix show, and like he's on a bunch of stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's really, I got to imagine it's got to be a little bit of awkwardness there. But anyway, so yeah, the voice actors, I think in this, I don't think there's a situation like that in this. I'm pretty sure that everyone is the same. The voices aren't quite perfected yet, though, I noticed.
No, they're not quite as quick, but I almost like the voice work and the animation in a similar state of not quite there.
Yeah. I would say that is about right, because I think it's you know what it is. The animation's a little too cluttered. There's almost like what I love is the simplicity of the artwork style they eventually went with Steven. This is very messy and there's just stuff everywhere. It's like, I don't know. It's a really sort of.
It's little things as well, like the beach house where they live in doesn't feel as big or expansive.
No, it doesn't, and it's clearly like the layout is different as where it is in the perspective of the town as well, because it seems to be very close to the donut shop.
Yeah, I spotted that.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's so on the whole though, like you'd recommend a fan watching?
Yeah,
this?
I'd recommend someone as far as we are into the series, which is towards the end of series 1, checking it out. I would. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only 7 minutes long, so it's not gonna cause you any harm to check it out. I think it is an interesting historical document. Yeah. And to some levels, an enjoyable episode, because I quite like the timey-wimey comeback storyline.
Yes, yeah, it's very good. I love the idea of a device that will only work once for a very specific purpose, and then will only ever can be used for that purpose again. Which I like. It's quite a surprisingly unique idea to throw away in an episode like this.
Yeah, definitely.
So there you go. So that's us
reviewing the pilot.
Yeah, there's not as much to say about the pilot because obviously it's shorter than a normal episode, so this probably has ended up being shorter than a normal episode of this podcast. But not to worry, we are we're on the cusp of the big ones, Chris.
Well, I mean, I could make you do a song.
You could. Are you going to make me do a song?
Just saying. Do you feel guilty, Dan? You want to make it a little bit longer?
I mean,
to perform a song.
Are we doing a third song? Which song now then? So we've done. We Are the Crystal Gems. We did. We did Giant Woman.
I'll take the Island song.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Be Wherever You Are.
Have you ever done that song?
I tried that song once, and I very very briefly recorded it just to see what it would sound like. And I played it because I like sometimes when I'm like practicing, like having a recording device in front of me when I'm playing my ukulele makes me be a bit more precise. Like the idea that I'm documenting my progress makes me try harder. Yeah. I don't know why that is. So I recorded it, and then later on Nadia heard it and was like, Nadia's my girlfriend, and she was just like, yeah, that doesn't suit your voice.
Well, let's definitely have that song now then.
Yeah, so I haven't played it since. So let's see if I can do that one then. I think it's called Be Wherever You Are. So yeah, coming up next, apparently, thanks Chris. Yeah.
We need to come up with an equivalent. You'd be like, randomly, we're a bit short on an episode, and you're like, I mean, you could rap for 5 minutes, Chris, couldn't you? Like
freestyle rapping about the episode we just witnessed. So yeah, okay, that's a thing that has to happen now. Lovely. Thanks, Chris.
No worries, buddy.
Yeah. Cool. So that's everything for this week. Other than the song, which will come after the credits. I've been Dan Doolan.
I'm a very excited Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next week as we end up discussing, I believe, The Message.
Isn't this such a beautiful night? Whoa. We're underneath 1,000 shining stars. Isn't it nice to find yourself somewhere different? Whoa, why don't you let yourself just be wherever you are? Look at this place, look at your faces. They're shining like 1,000 shining stars. Isn't it nice to find yourself somewhere different? Whoa, why don't you let yourself just be wherever you are? Why don't you let yourself just be somewhere different? Whoa, why don't you let yourself just be whoever you are?